Welcome, class of 2026. Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual presentation. We're so sorry we weren't able to meet in person this year. My name is Megan Cooper and I'm one of the school counselors here at South County. What we're going to go over in this presentation is a little bit of information about who are some people that you may be working with while you're here at South County, some of the differences that your student will experience going from middle school to high school, what some of the graduation requirements are, and then talking a little bit about how your student can best select courses for them as they meet with their middle school counselors in the coming week for their rising 9th grade year.
Hi everyone, I'm Armin Musadanigic. I am one of the school counselors here at South County High School. This is actually my first year at South County and I'm really excited to be part of the team. One thing that may be different compared to the middle school is at South County we actually divvy up our students based on alphabet. So for instance, if your last name falls from MY to RAY, you would have me as a counselor, or if your last name falls from A to BOR, you would have Miss Cooper as a counselor, and so on and so forth. Some of the other names to get familiar with outside of your counselor is Miss Norum, who is the Director of Student Services. She's always out giving a helping hand to whoever she can. And other names that you will eventually get to work with later on is Holly Beal, our College and Career Specialist, and Miss Loria, our Transcript Secretary. Those are somebody names to keep in mind because junior and senior year will be doing more extensive work with that. South County High School is actually broken into two different sub-schools, so sub-school 1-2 and sub-school 3-4. And depending on where your last name falls in the alphabet, you'll either be in sub-school 1-2 or 3-4. So for instance, if you're in the first half of the alphabet, you'll have either Mr. Carrington or Miss Jones as your assistant principal. If you're in the second half of the alphabet, you'll have Mr. Gavin or Miss Tolan as your assistant principal. So making the transition from middle school to high school is definitely a big jump, but it is one that we're here to support you in your journey at South County. So there are some differences between the middle school and high school, and one of the first differences you'll see is that there are no teams in high school, and each student is assigned a counselor based on their alphabet. So depending on where you fall in the alphabet, you'll have a counselor assigned to you from your freshman year, and it'll be that same counselor all the way until your senior year. One of the other big differences is the level of expectations and responsibilities you have now as a high school student. So for instance, if you were to miss a day or miss an assignment, it's up to you to coordinate with the teachers to make up that assignment, and you're responsible for managing your classes and coordinating with the teachers to make sure you stay ahead on top of your work. Me and Ms. Cooper were able to do a panel with some of our freshman teachers, and they definitely gave some helpful tips for transitioning high school students, so be sure to check that out. One of the other things to keep in consideration when it comes to the high school is that your electives are year-long courses. So be sure to be confident in your choices going into your freshman year. Make sure you consult with your parents and close ones to determine what class is the best fit, because you'll be in that class for the entire year.
Okay, so what are some of the differences between our honors classes and our general education or regular classes? In high school, when you are in an honors class, you get an extra weight on your GPA. So what that means is if you received an A in a class, in a regular or standard class, that would be a 4.0 into your GPA. In an honors class, that would be a 4.5. We like to try and remember and remind our students that with that great awesome opportunity to get that 0.5 also comes more responsibility and independent work. As Mr. Musadanigic referred to earlier, we were able to sit down with some of our teachers who teach 9th grade courses to do a panel to give us a little bit of information where they talk specifically about the differences between honors and regular in their content area. That video is also available, so we really encourage you guys to check it out. But the overarching things that we see and that we hear is that you have more projects or papers or assignments when it comes to your honors classes. We are expecting that our students do a little bit more independent work outside of school before they come in and are able to maintain their schedule and get assignments and work done independently, as opposed to having a little bit more time in class to get those things done. So one of the other big differences about high school is that every class that you take from here on out is working towards and counting towards a credit that you need for graduation. In Fairfax County, there are two different diploma types. There's the standard diploma and the advanced diploma. And before I go through what the differences between the two are, we want to always encourage and remind you all to remember that the counselors are going to work with you all very closely over your next 4 years to ensure that you are taking exactly what you need in order to stay on track for graduation. There's no need to try and memorize each and every one of these. Just know that we're going to be here meeting with you and talking through and helping you track to ensure that you have what you need. For the standard diploma, a student needs 22 credits, and for the advanced diploma, they need 26 credits. The big difference between the two is that for the advanced diploma, students need 4 years of math and 4 years of science, whereas in the standard diploma, they only need 3 of each. I will tell you that I encourage all of my students to take 4 years of all of their core courses, regardless of what their diploma type is, knowing that it's a different circumstance for each student, and we talk about that each year when we pick our classes. The other really big difference is the world language requirement. There is not a world language requirement for the standard diploma. However, for the advanced diploma, a student needs to take either 3 years of one language, so Spanish 1, 2, and 3, or 2 years of one, French 1 and 2, and 2 years of another, Japanese 1 and 2. From there, the differences kind of come down to which type of an elective a student needs to take. And that's where we start to track and really work with you all each year to make sure that you are taking what you need. Every student also needs to take either an AP class, an honors class, or complete a CTE credential, which is a test that goes along with any of our CTE classes. CTE classes can include marketing, our cooking classes, our computer classes, auto tech. There are a lot of ways their students will attempt this. So that's another requirement that we really work with our students to make sure that they're getting what they need for that. And it's something that can be reached throughout any of their 4 years of high school. One of the other questions that comes up quite a bit is how many years of PE do we need? In high school, no matter your diploma, a student needs to take 2 years of PE. 10th grade includes the driver's education portion, and both years you take a quarter of health as well. Finally, every student needs to take econ and personal finance throughout their time in high school. Most students end up taking that in their later years of high school when they have a little bit more room in their schedule, and you may have heard of some students taking that over a summer. Again, you guys will work with your counselor and your individual students to talk about what would be the best scenario for your student. One of the other really big differences from middle school to high school is that you need to pass a certain number of SOL tests in order to graduate. If you're a family who has an older student, you may or may not remember that years ago, depending on your diploma type, determined how many SOLs you need to take. Now, it does not matter which diploma you are getting. Every student needs to pass 5 SOLs. It's 2 English tests in which students take during their 11th grade year, and then 1 math, 1 science, and 1 social studies SOL. So students are going to work on this throughout their time in high school, and again, the counselors will help track this to ensure that students have taken what they need while they're in high school in order to get their SOL credits. One of the other testing requirements that's required for all students is a CPR certification. Students work towards this during their 9th grade PE year, and we will work with our students if for some reason that didn't happen or a student needs to take it later on. So what does that mean for your 9th grade student as you all are about to enter meeting with counselors to pick their classes? Typically, our 9th graders take the courses that are listed on the screen. Students will take English 9, regular or honors, World History 1, regular or honors, Science. Most of our students will take biology, which has a regular or an honors section. There may be some students in which your teachers are recommending you take environmental science. That course also counts towards our graduation requirements and keeps you on track. So we would say if that's a recommendation that you've been given, to talk with the counselor and the teacher at the middle school. Students are going to come into a math class. Which math you take is going to be very dependent on which math you are currently in the middle school. We have students who will be in Algebra 1 next year. If you took Algebra 1 at the middle school, you may be in Geometry, which is also available in regular or honors. And if you took Geometry in the middle school, you would be going into Algebra 2, which is also available in regular or honors. We may also have students who are recommended to take an Algebra 1 Part 1 class. which is a foundational class that helps to really ensure that we have the math skills necessary in order to be successful the whole way through high school. So again, if that's a recommendation for you all, we would strongly encourage you to talk with your math teacher at the middle school as well as your counselor to make sure your student is in the best math class for them. All of our 9th graders are going to be in Health and PE 9, and then that leaves 2 electives for our students to take. If your student is going to take a world language, one of those spots would be a world language, and then that leaves 1 more elective open. As Mr. Mustadonagich said a little bit earlier, we want students to remember our electives are year-long electives. So it's really important that what you pick, you are happy to be in for the whole year. We also met with your middle schoolers earlier this week over at the middle school to give them a really similar presentation, and we encouraged them to also be very intentional with the alternate electives that they pick if we run into an instance where we need to tap into their alternate elective.
Choosing your classes for your freshman year is definitely a lot of information to digest. So we do have an online course catalog available through the South County website. So if you were to head over to the South County High School website, and on the drop-down menu, click on Student Services, and then you'd be able to find the course catalog for Rising Freshmen, and in there you'd get a full description of each class that we offer for freshmen next year. This is a sample of our course selection sheet for the Rising 9th graders. You will be using this sheet when you meet with your counselors at the middle school to input classes for next year. When you're inputting classes for next year, make sure that you are finding the class that best fits your needs and your educational needs. Don't find a class to be with your best friend. Make sure you consult with your parents to find the right class for you, so going forward next year, you're set up for success.
So as we've said a few times throughout this presentation, if your student is currently an 8th grade student over at South County Middle School, they will be meeting with their counselor in the coming weeks in order to pick their classes for their 9th grade year. However, if you're one of the families watching this who your student is currently not at South County Middle and maybe is at a private school or at another middle school in our county, however, you will be in South County's boundaries next year, you will go ahead and need to contact Mrs. Carrasco, whose information is on the screen, to set up a registration appointment starting in mid-February. We just want to thank you all again for taking the time to watch this presentation. We're so sorry we weren't able to meet in person again, but we are so looking forward to meeting you and your student this coming fall here at South County.